Free agency rumors are already beginning to swirl, and the Dallas Mavericks find themselves in one of the biggest ones with a massive potential free agent this summer. This is the Gray Area right here on Kevin Gray Sports. My name is Kevin Gray. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. You can catch me on your home of the Dallas Cowboys and Texas Rangers, 105.3 The Fan. The Dallas Mavericks have their head coach in place, their general manager in place, and now they look to free agency to try and improve a basketball team that needs to do so going into a massive summer where their superstar and Luka Doncic will sign his 5-year, $201.5 million rookie max extension. And then the real work begins on who the Mavericks will need to surround Luka Doncic with to improve this team going forward. And the Mavericks already find themselves in one of the biggest rumors swirling around the NBA already now that the Los Angeles Clippers season has ended at the hands of the Phoenix Suns, with the Phoenix Suns advanced to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1993 after winning their Western Conference Finals series in 6 games, sealing it on the road against said Los Angeles Clippers. And, of course, Kawhi Leonard was not able to play in the Western Conference Finals because of an ACL injury. How severe that ACL injury we will come to find out as this summer goes on, which complicates a rumor that has already begun to swirl from the Ringer's Kevin O'Connor, where he says that the Mavericks and the Miami Heat plan to make a hard push to acquire Kawhi Leonard this summer. Well, you say, Kevin, no duh. The Dallas Mavericks have an opportunity to create a lot of cap space this summer. And, of course, any team in the NBA other than the Los Angeles Clippers would love to have Kawhi Leonard as a part of their team. Yes, there's complications with how you would have to deal with him in terms of his team and his camp when it comes to how he manages injuries, the load management. There are certain things that, yes, come with a potential of having Kawhi Leonard on your basketball team, but he's also a guy that's won 2 NBA championships in 2 different stops. Kevin O'Connor goes on to say Dallas is considered by some executives to be the most serious threat to land Kawhi because of Luka Doncic's presence and the front office's ability to create maximum cap space or work out a sign and trade. During Leonard's years with Nike, he also developed a good relationship with Nico Harrison, the Mavs' new general manager and a former longtime executive at the company, end quote. Now, obviously, there's a lot to unpack there. Yes, Kawhi Leonard will be pursued by a ton of teams if he decides to opt out of his contract and becomes a free agent this summer. Yes, he did just buy a $17.1 million mansion in California, which could signal the idea that he isn't really going anywhere. But what you hear and see from Kevin O'Connor's report from The Ringer is this, and this is more to the point of why, while you may not necessarily see Kawhi Leonard in a Mavericks uniform this upcoming season, what you're already seeing is the idea of what Nico Harrison could potentially mean when it comes to free agency and free agency recruiting. The amount of relationships that he's developed across the NBA and throughout basketball circles is clearly vast. And when you have an individual in Nico Harrison who finds himself having the kinds of the relationships that he has with the Damian Lillards of the world, with the Kawhi Leonards of the world, whomever you want to name as being a longtime Nike executive, those things matter when it comes to free agency. While, again, it may not necessarily signal that Kawhi Leonard is coming, what it does signal is that the Mavericks should be taken much more seriously now, just for the simple fact that they have a man in their front office who could have the kinds of conversations that this team has not been able to have in years past, with Donnie Nelson leading the front office charge when it comes to bringing in free agency. The free agents and the prospective ones that the Dallas Mavericks will look to try and bring in will have much more credibility from this standpoint. Folks know who Nico Harrison is, and more importantly, Nico Harrison knows how to evaluate, find talent, and be able to market said talent, which will translate, I think, well in his job as general manager. Because part of your role as a general manager is to be able to show, describe, and more so execute on the culture that you're building for your franchise, but then effectively communicate that to prospective free agents to give them the idea that it's not just about playing with Luka Doncic, it's about building something special with said organization that will last for years to come, and more importantly, that player will have a mutually beneficial relationship with the team, not just on the court, but off the court when it comes to whatever ventures they decide to do, but mostly it's because of the success that they would have on the court with a Mavericks team, in this case, by playing alongside Luka Doncic. Yes, I've heard the reports of Brian Windhorst and your man Kendrick Perkins talking about the idea that folks may not necessarily be excited to come play with Luka Doncic, and the idea that Luka may not be the best person to play with. All that is hogwash. You and I and everyone else watching this video knows that it's a joy and a privilege to play with Luka Doncic, especially when he is the one who is as unselfish as he is in the NBA. So if Kawhi Leonard wants to find himself in a situation as a 30-year-old player, one of the 5 best players in the NBA, coming to a Maverick situation, he ultimately could be comfortable here, not just because he has a previously existing relationship with Nico Harrison, but the Mavericks also have one of the best medical staffs in all of the NBA. Casey Smith is world-renowned for his medical treatment and his ability to treat players, and one of the reasons why he has worked with USA Basketball in the past. Casey Smith and his medical team would be able to work with Kawhi Leonard in his camp, because we know how Uncle Dennis likes to get down with Kawhi Leonard and trying to manage his boy when it comes to his knee injuries and the load management that comes with that. So again, Kawhi Leonard may not necessarily be a Dallas Maverick. I'm not trying to squelch or quell your enthusiasm potentially of Kawhi Leonard, a 2-time Finals MVP, a 2-time NBA champion, an All-NBA performer joining this Mavericks. I'm not here to do that. But what I am here to tell you is that Nico Harrison gives you much more optimism that guys like Kawhi Leonard will take a much more serious look at the Dallas Mavericks going forward, because of his ability, Nico Harrison's that is, to have those relationships and leverage those to potentially bring free agents here. We say, Kevin, first, you got to walk before you run. You got to crawl before you walk. Yeah, I know the history of this Mavericks team when it comes to free agency and the lack of success that they've had in terms of executing free agency. That has been long and well documented. But the Mavericks are hoping for a new day with respect to how they go about chasing stars to pair with Luka Doncic, because you and I both know that you've got to have stars in this league to be able to win and win big. We've seen how teams have been ravaged and devastated by losing their stars in the NBA playoffs, and it seems like the healthiest team that survives this year's NBA playoffs will win. And right now, the way things are going, the Phoenix Suns look like the one that may be able to be the survival of the fittest when it comes to having their players healthy at the right time to end their season. But more importantly for the Mavericks, this hopefully shifts culturally what the Mavericks will try to do to get free agency, because that kind of cultural shift and paradigm shift that the Mavericks need has been something that honestly has been desired for a long time. Can you get individuals in here who have a better understanding of how to connect with players, especially free agents across the NBA, to give them the idea that they can come play in Dallas, that they won't be in the shadows of the Dallas Cowboys, that they won't find themselves getting lost in the sauce when it comes to Texas sports, and more importantly, knowing that they're playing with a guy in Luka Doncic who will continue to make them better, and the fact that he's only 22 years old. That's where Jason Kidd comes in also. His player relationships across the NBA, we've heard the endorsements of Damian Lillard, the endorsements of guys like LeBron James and others who vouch for Jason Kidd. That is where he comes in also. His ability to have grown and learned from his previous stops to be able to leverage the kind of improved communication needed to be able to help this basketball team could make it much more attractive also for free agents to look at this particular team. Even if you lose a guy in Tim Hardaway who is rumored to potentially going to Miami because, of course, he's from there and has familial ties in Miami. Even if you lose certain guys, there's really a much more optimistic look at what it means for the Mavericks to potentially get guys to come to Dallas to play basketball. And ultimately, if the Mavericks are going to continue to go down this road, which it appears that they are, because they're not in a position really from their past and more importantly their future to show that they can improve themselves in the draft overall, you're going to have to chase free agents to get stars to come to play for this team, especially if you're going to build around a player in Luka Doncic who's going to be signing that $201.5 million extension. So dream on about Kawhi Leonard, but more importantly, start thinking about names like Rashawn Holmes and Norman Powell and other more realistic names that could potentially find themselves in a Dallas Mavericks uniform, maybe even a Kyle Lowry potentially coming to Dallas. But the fact that you and I can have this conversation, and more importantly, executives around the NBA feel like the Dallas Mavericks are a serious threat to potentially get Kawhi Leonard, that should encourage you actually in and of itself. And maybe the Mavericks could strike in free agency, maybe not this year, but maybe next year also. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Again, be sure to hit that subscribe button right there for all things Kevin Gray Sports here on YouTube. This has been another episode of The Gray Area. We'll talk to you later. Peace.